Imagine you're sitting with everyone you love. You have your best friend over, and you also have your partner over. It's a Wednesday night, and you're all just watching some movies and a couple of TV shows. You feel the squeeze of your partner's hand, and you know you're loved. After some time, you notice that your best friend gets up and he leaves. He always takes his time, but for some reason, you feel like something's wrong. He's been acting really strange lately. Maybe it's work, life, you have no idea. But you also kind of notice your partner's been acting a little weird. Before you can even ask or figure out what's happening, you are brutally murdered by your best friend. The next 3 days, your best friend and your partner would go on to mutilate your body and film it. And they degrade you in ways you never would have imagined. This is the murder and betrayal of Robert Beckowitz. Welcome to the very first episode of the Decomposing Flower podcast. I'm your host, Jen, and with me is Kira. In this podcast, we discuss all sorts of interesting cases that we find disturbing, interesting, mysterious, or downright creepy or scary. In each episode, we're going to take turns telling unique stories, and for this episode, we are going to be talking about the murder of Robert Beckowitz. Before I go on to this story, I just want to make it very clear that everything that we say in this video is information that we have found on the internet through articles, videos, anything that we could find. And if anything we say is incorrect or wrong, we apologize. Feel free to correct us. And anything that we say is our opinion is only our opinion. But with that being said, I'm just going to list off some of the trigger warnings with this case. So, for the trigger warnings, I have murder, mutilation of a dead body, necrophilia, mentions of drug use, potential kidnapping, and rape. I just want to make a little disclaimer that if you do look up Robert Beckowitz, a lot of the photos that were taken during his murder are on the internet. So if you are looking these cases up, just be very careful. There's a lot of them and they're very gruesome. From a lot of people I've heard talk about this case, and just from their own experiences, from people who are okay with handling some gore, a lot of people said it was a lot. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of put that out there. So, one thing I also want to add before we hop into this case is there wasn't a whole lot of information on Robert or even like the murder of the case. It was really hard for me to find a lot of stuff. So if I do get anything wrong or there seems to be a lot of missing information, that's just due to me not being able to find anything. There was only like a couple articles that I could find. But yeah. So should I start?
Yeah, I think we're ready to get kicked off here.
I guess I'll kind of describe Robert as like the victim of this. One of the things about Robert was he didn't really have any family. He was an orphan. He was I don't know where he was born. I tried looking it up. It didn't really give me any information. The only thing I know was that he was born October 5th, 1948, and that he was an orphan. He did have a brother, but I don't know what happened to his brother. Tried looking his brother up, couldn't find anything. And yeah, so I don't really know if he had any other family. But you know, he did say, like, some neighbors did say that Robert said that he was like abused or like beaten
Oh,
in the
so he went into foster care then.
yeah, and so I don't know if he was like abused by like the people in the orphanage or if it was other kids or whatever it was. Um, but he had a pretty normal life. I guess as normal as it can be. He was known as like a troublemaker kind of, but they said it was nothing like anything warranted of being murdered. Like, you obviously, like, there are sometimes where people can have like they can make enemies along the way and then that can be one of the reasons why they get killed or whatever. Um but he was just like a biker and he just lived a pretty simple life. So that was really the only information I had on this guy, which I thought was kind of sad that like you can't really find anything else because I really do like to look up victims and see what they were like as a person because these are real people. Like, this is not just like a TV show we're talking about, and I like to kind of
Mhm.
show a lot of respect to the victims and their family. But I don't know if he just didn't have any family and that's why like there's no other information, or if his family is around and they just wanted to, keep it private, because that's obviously another thing that a lot of people like to do. But Robert, he was dating this girl named Janine Clark, and Janine, she was a little bit, how, I don't know how to describe her. She was like a troublemaker. Like she was caught. She was like on parole for like a bank robbery,
Oh,
and
okay, that's pretty serious.
yeah, she was a runaway teen, and she started dating Robert 2 years up until he was murdered. She was 20 at the time when he was killed, so I'm assuming they started dating when she was 18, but I don't really know if there was anything else involved. Some people said this was speculated on Reddit, so this is not like a fact or anything, but some people speculated that maybe he was like her drug dealer. I don't know if that's
Oh.
true. I don't know anything else. All I know is that she was a runaway teen and she was dating Robert, who was like 33 at the time, so there was a huge age gap there.
Oh,
It was like,
wow, that's big.
yeah,
Yeah.
13 years there. And yeah, so apparently like she met him at a bar, but like again, there wasn't really a whole lot of information on like the backstory. So if anyone obviously knows any backstory, that'd be really cool to learn about. So but yeah, Robert had a pretty chill life and he had a few friends, and one of his friends was named James Glover. Now, James was like a special kind of guy. They said he had a lot of anger issues and like other issues, but they didn't really say what the other issues are. I don't know if that meant like other mental health issues, but he was
Mhm.
also physically disabled in a way where he had a spinal cord injury, and so he walked around with a cane, which this is all
Oh.
relevant to the story. I'm not just like mentioning this for just for context. This is really relevant. A little fun fact, not really a fun fact, but James and Janine were having an affair. So they were both, well, they weren't both cheating on Robert because they weren't all in a relationship. James and Janine were cheating, and I don't really know how long they had been cheating for. Like, I don't know, never really gave me any of that information.
Did they tell
But
you how old, James was?
he was 37, so he was like almost,
Holy.
or yeah, almost 20 years older than her. So because they mentioned that James had this like anger issue, people said that, his tension was rising a lot because of this. And like again, I don't know how long they were cheating on, if it had only been a couple weeks, a couple months, but it was really rising. On July 17th, 1982, James, Robert, and Janine were all at Robert's apartment in Detroit, and they were watching The Benny Show. Do you even know what that is?
No.
Yeah,
That sounds like
apparently.
a talk show.
Yeah, it was apparently like I think it was like a British comedy show. I don't really know a whole lot on it, but they were just like watching some TV shows. They apparently were like watching some documentaries too. I don't know why that was relevant in the thing, but okay. But they were, they're just watching TV, and Janine and Robert were sitting on a couch and they're like holding hands, and James got up and he decided to go out for a bit, and it didn't say where he went or how like long he was like gone for, but he apparently was gone for a bit and that it just wasn't like raising any alarms. But he came back into the basement suite apartment that they were in, and he came up behind Robert, and he had a 45 caliber gun with him, and he shot Robert in the head and obviously instantly killing him. And then he proceeded to stab him 83 times.
Oh, what? Oh my god.
Yeah,
Like,
and
this wow.
I do not know. I didn't find any of this information, but I don't know if he had like any motive, like if it was because he wanted to continue his relationship with Janine, if him and Janine had plotted this. There was really no, like, I don't know, but obviously it was plotted to a degree because he had the gun with him, and then he also had a hacksaw that he got from his like parents.
Oh,
And so
wow.
what happened for the next 3 days was Janine and James had like this orgy, and they had
Oh.
lots of sex. They took meth, and it said they took other drugs, but it didn't specify. It just said they took meth, and they had lots of sex. And some of that sex included them having sex on top of Robert's dead body, which is
Oh.
horrendous.
Oh
And
God.
on top of this, they proceeded to mutilate Robert's body and cutting him up into 14 pieces, including like decapitating his head, taking apart all his part like his body. But during all of this, they're taking pictures, which is where the pictures come from. So
Oh
the pictures
no.
like online, which you can find, like I said, and in the pictures you see like Janine and James both like cutting him up, like mutilating him, and just like doing horrendous things. Like I didn't know like you could just find pictures like this online. Like I didn't know that was available.
Well,
Like
yeah, and also like how sick you have to be to upload something like that, right?
yeah, because do you know about like I think it's called the Museum of Death.
Yeah, I've heard about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's in LA, and apparently people said that the Polaroids are actually in the museum, so you can go and see.
No.
And I just find that very like kind of interesting, like not in a like cool way, but like I didn't think that you could do that. I don't know a whole lot about that stuff. Like I didn't know if it was legal or not. I don't
Yeah, that
know if
seems
it's
kind of intrusive and kind of insensitive to him, right?
yeah, because like for me, like if I was like killed, I don't know, I wouldn't want pictures of my dead body just all over the internet, let alone in a museum. To me, that's really like disrespectful, but I don't know, maybe he had family and they were okay with it, or maybe because he didn't have family, it was like, well, we're gonna do that. I don't know. I don't really know. But in these pictures, like I said, you can see Janine, like she's like smiling and holding his like decapitated head. You can
God.
see them like just laughing, like having like the best time ever. It's really disturbing. Um, but also like they had taken his head in one of the pictures you can see his head like on like the a chair or like a couch with his like fingers in his mouth, with his toes, and
What the
also
heck?
his genitals. And
No.
Janine claims that James told her that he wanted her to emasculate Robert. Apparently, she said in these pictures, which I don't know if these pictures are on there, but she took parts of his body and had sex with them, which is just so fucked up.
Yeah, and I mean like first of all to stab him, what was it, 87 times? That's so
Angry.
much hatred.
Yeah. And then to cut him up and just like take pictures of the whole thing and then like have sex on top of his dead body, and then they were taking pictures of his body to try and mock him and like make fun of him and like emasculate him, and like this guy was his best friend too. Like this wasn't just like a guy that
Oh.
wanted to be with Janine and was like upset that she was dating Robert. It was like this was his friend that he was doing this to. Like, how can you do that to your own friend? And also, how can she do that to her boyfriend? Like, yeah. So the thing is though, Janine claims that like James forced her to do all this and that
Mm.
he didn't have a say in any of it, that he told her that if she didn't do it, he would kill her. But like in the pictures, she looks like she's having a really good time. So that is kind of something we'll talk about a little bit later in the case, but yeah,
Mhm.
that's a little thing to make note of. But apparently they did this for 3 days. It was a Wednesday night, and on the Saturday night, Janine came down from her high, and when she was like sober, she called the cops and obviously confessed to what had happened. And so this is like something I find interesting because I'm like, if she was like forced to do this and maybe she was like so drugged up she didn't know what she was doing, that would be
Mhm.
really horrifying. But I
Mhm.
also don't know if she's just using this as a cop out to try and be like, oh, I didn't have any part of this. I tried looking up a lot about like meth and like if it makes people do like obviously drugs can make people do things they wouldn't normally do, obviously. But
Right,
a
yeah.
lot of it didn't say like this kind of stuff. So I don't know, like I'm not a drug expert. I don't know enough, but the cops obviously came over and they said it was like the most gruesome thing ever. Robert's body was cut up into 14 pieces in plastic bags and he was like hidden throughout the apartment. They couldn't like they had to go looking for his body. James was like very sedated. He was still like on drugs. James, he was just such a piece of shit of a person.
Like,
Um,
really, yeah.
so like when Janine was kind of sitting there and she was like, "Oh, like he forced me to do this." They got like witnesses that were like the neighbors, like they got statements from them and apparently she was seen walking around doing her own thing and like getting more film for the Polaroid and she was by herself. And then apparently saw Janine and James earlier that day at a garage sale, which is very fucking weird. And then someone claimed that they had saw her like outside and like begging James to let her back in, but they thought it was just like some like relationship, like someone getting in a fight or whatever. And I don't know if this neighborhood like cuz the other thing that like makes me like very curious is like he shot Robert, right? So
Yeah, that's pretty loud, right?
yeah, so wouldn't like people hear that and like report it? I don't know, like it said he was in a basement apartment suite, so I don't really know like if like I just wonder if like the complex he was in was it like not that good? Like did they people not care? We're also Canadian, so we don't have like guns. So like I don't know, maybe this is like a common thing that Americans just hear all the time and they're just like, "Eh, whatever." Like I don't
Mm.
know.
Yeah, like I feel like it's not normal to be like, you're having a a couch hangout with your best friends, you're watching some documentaries, you're watching a show, you're in the 1980s. Like I feel like that's kind of a red flag.
I don't know. I just think it's like very interesting that like there wasn't a report, but maybe because like this could be like a maybe a really bad neighborhood. And I will talk a little bit about like the community a little bit later, but um yeah, like I just thought like that was kind of like interesting. But so because of that, the police like took that and then I think at first they wanted to believe Janine because she was like this pretty young girl and like James was this like ugly pathetic looking 37-year-old man and
Hmm.
was on drugs. He had an anger issue. Like they probably were like, "Oh, this poor girl got forced into this." So they had to obviously they arrested both of them, but they arrested Janine because she was still on parole for the bank robbery charge that she had done.
Yeah.
They they were arresting both of them and with Janine, they were actually originally just going to use her as like a witness because she obviously saw this whole thing and they were like, okay, we'll just use you as a witness for this. But I think as like time went on, they kind of were like, wait a minute. They looked at the pictures and in the pictures, she's like smiling and she's having a lot of fun and she does not look like she's forced to do this. She looks like she's happy. Like and like yeah, she was on drugs, but like they were just like this is like evidence of her cuz like in the picture she's literally mutilating his body, like Robert's body. So it's like that's like straight up evidence and they were like, "Okay, so now she was also being arrested on this as well." James was arrested for second-degree murder, mutilation of a dead body, and use of a firearm. And he tried to claim in court that it wasn't his fault because he was on drugs, that he didn't remember a single thing, but because the pictures were there, he's like, well, obviously I did something, but he said he didn't remember. And like, I just don't know if that's like the truth or if he's just trying to make a cop out. Like, it doesn't really matter if you remember, you still did the thing. Like,
Yeah, like also murder in the second degree, like that like you mentioned earlier, like it clearly shows premeditation. If he brought over like the hacksaw, like they had it all planned out.
this was like one of those really weird cases where like the judge at first was like maybe we need to bring mental health like because this is when mental health was starting to become like I wouldn't say it wasn't becoming normalized yet but it was a lot it was being more talked about in like court like they were like we need to make sure he's sane so he ordered James to go and get a psych eval and James was fine he was sane so he was fit to run not run like go through
Stand
trial
in
and
trial,
yeah,
yeah.
stand at trial. And like I feel like sometimes like mental health can be a little bit of a cop out, but it really does depend on like the disorder and like what's happening because plenty of people have like different kinds of disorders and don't do this type of thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So he got 30 to 50 years,
Oh.
and James during this time, because when he was on court, this is when he confessed that he actually did force Janine. Yeah, he basically was just like, yeah, I forced her. He said it in such a weird way. He was like, I didn't really force her, but she couldn't leave at the same time. So, like, that's a very interesting thing.
But she left.
And then the other thing that the police said was because, like, James was this, like, he limped around, he was a lot more physically disabled. I don't know if physically disabled is the correct word, but he had like issues with walking and like he was like very weak. Like she could have taken him down. She could have pushed him down. She could have like ran out. It wasn't like she was chained up, forced. And then also she was walking around. So at that time she could have just literally called someone or told someone what happened, but she just didn't. So like the prosecutor used that in court. He was like, this doesn't make any sense. She could have, taken him down. Basically, the prosecutor, he took the pictures that was in there and he was like, she looks happy. She doesn't look scared. She doesn't look forced. There's no fear. Like, for most people, if you were like forced to kill your partner and then, perform sexual acts with their body, like in the pictures, you would be able to tell that someone is uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I would think you would be able to tell. Pretty sure you would. Like, she's way too happy in the pictures. And so, obviously, the prosecutor, he was like, yeah, this is not looking good for her. She's obviously guilty. Like, she wasn't technically guilty for killing him because she didn't partake in the actual killing, but she was still there. And she could have also stopped, or during the stabbing, she could have ran out. Like, she had ample amount like of time to leave this situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically, her defense lawyer tried to say, well, the pictures were probably used for like blackmail because he had told her she couldn't leave because he had to get rid of the body. I personally like just don't believe that. I think she was equally wanting this as much as James, and like you always see this with people where they work as a team and they kill people and then they always try and blame the other person. No one ever takes accountability, and it's just so disgusting. So Janine did get charged with mutilation of a dead body, and she only got 10 years and she only served 6.
What?
Yeah, so that was like really, really weird. And the judge had said like he didn't know what like Janine was really capable of, and he said that there was something evil about her, which I thought was very interesting, but he said like they could only charge her with the mutilation of a dead body. And apparently with like the community though, when this happened, like they were really scared because a lot of them were like, this happened so close to them. They were really scared. Are there going to be more people? And I feel like maybe in the 80s this was becoming like more and more of a thing,
Yeah.
or it was becoming more popular. The evidence was getting better. So maybe like people were becoming more aware, like because it's not like now where like every day you can log on to Twitter or wherever and just find out like who was killed. Like there's always something happening. So I feel like people were like just now becoming more aware of it. So they were really scared. But apparently like the complex had a lot of issues, and the people were actually really angry because it was supposed to be a place for just single families to live, but they were renting out to like 4 or 5 people at a time, and people were like just really upset. So apparently like they had that whole thing change for their community, but a lot of people were scared. They didn't want to give like testimonies of things they saw because they were afraid of retaliation
Mm-hmm.
and all that. Basically, James died a few years later of
Oh.
bone cancer. And Janine is still alive. This is the thing though. I tried looking for like sourcing this, but it was only from a few things on Reddit, so I can't say if this is true. But basically, she's living in Arizona now, and she apparently she stole a credit card in 2011, and then it was 2018 she faked a tax return scheme.
Oh.
So she's still constantly doing shit. I don't know if she's done anything like this. I saw a picture of her recently that people claimed was her. It looks like her. I can't really source it. I don't know. And I don't know like if she really was forced into all this, if she wasn't. but I don't know if she's just constantly just having issues because she was already doing shit before this murder. So I don't know if she's just like one of those people that just like got caught up in the wrong crowd. Maybe her parents were like really shitty and then her life just became this. Doesn't really matter. She did what she did, and I don't know if she ever had a family. I don't know. I really don't know. But that was like pretty much the case. The other thing to add was they actually made a movie based off this shit called The Descendants in
Oh my
2021.
God, no way.
And it's the exact same storyline pretty much. But it's filmed kind of like lost footage kind of stuff.
Oh
Um,
wow.
which I just thought was kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I know it's like kind of like ironic to say like I don't like when people make media and like entertainment because we're doing a podcast on this type of stuff.
Hmm.
But like I still find it like interesting when they make movies. And apparently the movie was like almost like gore porn kind of stuff,
Oh
like where it's just strictly for like the gore aspect. It's not like entertainment or like curiosity wise, but yeah. So that was the story of the murder of Robert Beckowitz. So yeah.
wow. That's messed up. And so like she's 50 years old, 60 years old now. Um
Yeah.
just walking around free. I mean, I'm glad they were taking off the streets and that she had the moral compass to call when she did, but still that's so messed up.
That was the other thing too, is like wondering is like, did she call because she realized what happened, or was she like, oh, we can't get out of this, I'm gonna have to call?
Yeah.
Like, it's very interesting to know like what her real reasonings were. Because like when she was like in court, she was crying the entire time, trying to say she would never do that to her Bob. Like, I feel like I don't know, like you just see this all the time. Like, I do see like women where they'll be like more manipulative because she was this young girl who did this, and it would be very easy to be like, this guy forced me to do it. But like, who knows? Maybe she was forced and she really was innocent, but she still cut him up and
Yeah, she
did
still
things. Like, she's not like,
mutilated the body. Yeah.
yeah, like, and she's still like, like so much disrespect to this like poor guy, and yeah.
Yeah.
And like I at first like when I was researching this, I was wondering, oh, maybe like Robert was like a pretty shitty guy and like she felt like she didn't know how to get out, but then she didn't say any of that. She didn't use that. So like she really just tried to say that she was forced and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, she was young when she did it, right? She was in her 20s.
Yeah,
Um,
she was 20.
yeah. I think it's just, you know, messed up that they would have brutalized and taken away someone's life like that. And now it's like, okay, that's it. I don't know. Just like the trust aspect too. Like you're sitting on the couch, you're watching a show, you're here with the people you love, and then all of a sudden, like this comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that was the other thing too. They said is that like people think like James did that where he went from behind because Robert was like 6'4", he was like 240 pounds. And James, like from the picture that I could see, he looked a lot smaller, but he also was like physically disabled and like he was kind of like limping. So like if he probably would have tried to attack Robert, Robert probably would have been able to take him down and probably kill him for in self-defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I guess it's like the fact of being like cheated on, first of all, is already like really shitty. And then to have these people then kill you, then like mutilate you and take pictures and they're laughing the entire time and they're having fun and like it's just so fucked up. Like so many things that happened.
Yeah.
Crazy. But yeah, that is the case of Robert Beckowitz.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be curious to hear anyone's thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you think about the case. Um,
Yeah, if anyone's like heard it before, or if I got any facts wrong, or if you have any like I don't want to say like theories, but like if you wonder like do you think like she was like forced into this type of thing, or do you think she was innocent? It's very interesting because like I was kind of wishing that there was like video like interviews or audio because like sometimes when you watch like video interviews or whatever, you can kind of see the body language and kind of like be like, oh, that person's clearly like innocent. I mean, you can't always tell, but sometimes you can.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if anyone has anything else they want to add to it, or if anyone has anything they want to say or whatever, and if you want to look it up, you're free to do that. Obviously, just be very careful with the pictures you see because they're pretty gruesome. But yeah,
Yeah.
so that was our very first episode. In the next episode, Kira will actually have her own little thing that she's researching, and that's what we're gonna kind of do. If anyone has like any like things they want us to talk about, let us know. But that was our very first episode of the decomposing flower.
We'll see you in the next episode.